They offered me $250,000. I made them sign something first. Let me back up. 20 years ago, I was 24 years old, holding my 11-month-old daughter in a hospital waiting room, watching doctors try to save my husband's life. David had collapsed at his desk at work. Just fell over mid-email. His coworker called 911, called me. By the time I got there, they were already using the defibrillator. Undiagnosed heart condition, they told me later. He was 27 years old. At the funeral, I couldn't stop staring at Lily in her little black dress. She kept reaching for David, saying Dada over and over. I'd hold her tighter, and she'd cry harder. My chest felt hollow. I remember thinking, how am I supposed to do this alone? That's when my mother-in-law Margaret found me in the church basement. I was trying to get Lily to eat some crackers. Margaret sat down next to me, put her hand on mine. Her fingers were cold. Sarah, she said, we need to talk about the house. I blinked at her. What? The house in Sunset District. We need to discuss the arrangements. Arrangements? My brain was moving through fog. I haven't thought about anything. I can barely think about tomorrow. Exactly. Margaret's voice got softer, sympathetic. You're in no state to handle all this. Property management, finances, upkeep. It's too much for someone your age, especially alone with a baby. I've been managing fine. Have you? She looked around at the church basement, at my daughter smearing crackers on her dress, at me in my thrift store funeral outfit. David's father and I have been discussing it. The house. Well, the down payment came from our family account. We gave David that money when you two got married. That was a lie, but I didn't know it yet. The house had been my grandmother's. She left it to me when she died 2 years before I met David. It was in my name only. Always had been. My grandmother had been specific about that in her will. To my granddaughter Sarah Chen, née Williams. But I was 24, grieving, and exhausted. I couldn't think straight. Robert and I believe, Margaret continued, that it would be better if the property stayed in the family proper. We'd transfer it to our name, sell it, and invest the proceeds for Lily's future. You'd be taken care of course. We'd make sure you had rent money, help with the baby. My father-in-law Robert appeared then, holding some papers. I looked at the papers. The words swam. Something about temporary property management and family trust and good faith agreement. I was so tired. Lily was screaming now, wanted to go home. Everyone was looking at me. This is for the best, Margaret said. David would want his family taking care of you. I signed. 3 days later, they changed the locks. I came home from the pharmacy. Lily had an ear infection. I'd been up all night and my key didn't work. I knocked. Robert opened the door but didn't let me in. We've moved some of your things to the garage apartment, he said. You can stay there temporarily until you find your own place. This is my house, I said. He held up the papers I'd signed. According to this temporary agreement, you've transferred management to us. We've decided to sell. The market's good right now. You'll get your share, don't worry. My share? This is my grandmother's house. It's been in my name since before I even met David. That's not how David explained it to us, Margaret said, appearing behind Robert. He said he bought it. With our help. That's not, but I stopped. Because what proof did I have? The house papers were inside. My documents were inside. Everything was inside. You're upset, Margaret said. You're not thinking clearly. Go to the garage apartment. Rest. We'll sort this out. They closed the door. I stood there on my own porch, holding my sick baby, with nowhere to go. That's when I understood. They'd planned this. They'd waited until I was at my weakest, most vulnerable moment. They'd struck. I stayed in the garage apartment for 2 weeks. It was a studio space, barely insulated, with a camping toilet and a hot plate. I tried calling lawyers. The cheapest consultation was $200. I had $43 in my checking account and a maxed-out credit card from the hospital bills. Every lawyer I spoke to said the same thing. If you signed papers, even temporary ones, we'd need to see the original deed to prove ownership. Do you have it? I didn't. It was in the house. In the filing cabinet in the bedroom, where I couldn't get to it. One morning, I woke up to Robert hammering a for sale sign into the front lawn. I ran out. "You can't sell this house. It's already listed," he said. "We have a buyer interested. Cash offer. 800,000. This is illegal. This is theft. This is business, Sarah. You're too emotional to understand. David's mother and I are doing what's best for the family." He looked at Lily in my arms. "For her future. I'll sue you." "With what money?" Robert smiled. "Not mean, just factual. Go ahead and try. We'll be happy to show a judge how incapable you are of managing your own affairs. You couldn't even pay David's hospital bills. The creditors are calling us." He was right. I had nothing. No money, no family, my parents were dead, grandmother was dead, I was an only child. David's sister Emma had called me once, said she was sorry. But she had 3 kids of her own and lived in Chicago. She couldn't fight them. The night before they closed on the house, I snuck in through a basement window. I knew where Robert kept his office key. I went through the filing cabinet, found my grandmother's original deed, the one that said Sarah Williams, my maiden name. The one that proved the house was mine before I ever met David, before I ever married into the Chen family. The one that showed the temporary agreement they'd tricked me into signing was fraudulent because I'd never actually legally transferred the property. I took the deed. I also took photos of the fake agreement they'd forged because looking at it now, with clear eyes, I could see Robert had changed dates, changed wording after I'd signed it. I took photos of everything in that filing cabinet. Then I left. Went to my friend Jenna's house, the only friend who was still talking to me. Everyone else had gotten tired of my problems. Jenna let me sleep in her garage, a real converted garage apartment this time, with heat and a bathroom. She watched Lily while I worked. I got a job at a coffee shop. 5 a.m. to 1 p.m., $6 an hour plus tips. Then I'd pick up Lily, feed her, put her down for a nap, and work my second job cleaning offices downtown, 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., $8 an hour. On weekends, I catered events, weddings, corporate parties, whatever I could get. $12 an hour. I worked 90-hour weeks. I saw my daughter 2 hours a day, max. The house sold. $800,000. I wasn't entitled to any of it. According to the lawyers I couldn't afford to hire. The fake temporary agreement I'd signed apparently gave the Chens the right to sell and invest the proceeds for the family benefit. I never saw a cent. Lily got sick again when she was 2. High fever, wouldn't eat. I took her to the emergency room. They said it was pneumonia. 3 days in the hospital. Insurance we had through David's work had expired when he died. The bill was $15,000. I didn't have $15,000. I didn't have $1,500. The hospital sent me to collections. My credit score dropped to 520. I couldn't rent an apartment now, even if I could afford one. Jenna let us stay in her garage for another year. Then she got married and needed the space. I understood. I moved us to a shelter for 6 months, then to subsidized housing on the east side. Lily started kindergarten. I enrolled in community college, night classes, business management. I figured if I was going to work this hard, I needed to work smart. Jenna helped me again, watched Lily during my classes. In my business law class, I met Professor Linda Martinez. She noticed I always asked questions about contracts, property law, fraud. "You're not just academically curious," she said. "What happened?" I told her everything. She listened. Then she said, "Do you still have that original deed?" "Yes." "The photos of the altered agreement?" "Yes." She sat back. "Sarah, you have a case, a strong one. They forged documents to steal your property. That's fraud, possibly elder abuse laws if we frame it right, definitely conversion of property. You could sue for the full $800,000 plus 20 years of interest. You're looking at over $1 million. My heart was pounding, but I can't afford a lawyer. I know some people who do contingency work. They take a percentage if you win, nothing if you lose. But Sarah, she looked at me seriously, this will take years. It'll be brutal. They'll attack your character, your parenting, everything. And there's no guarantee you'll win. Courts can be unpredictable. I thought about it that night. Thought about Lily, now 6 years old, sleeping in our subsidized housing apartment, in the bedroom we shared. thought about the 15-hour days I was working, thought about the Chens, living comfortably somewhere, probably in a nice house bought with my money. But I also thought about something Professor Linda had said in class. The best revenge isn't always legal action. Sometimes it's success. Build a life so good that they can't touch you. I decided not to sue. Not because I'd forgiven them, but because I did the math. A lawsuit would take 3 to 5 years, would consume my mental energy, would cost me in ways I couldn't afford, and I might lose. Even if I won, the Chens might declare bankruptcy, hide assets. I might win, and still get nothing. Instead, I took the money I would have spent on lawyer consultations, about $500 I'd saved, and I started a business. I'd been catering events for 3 years by then. I knew the industry. I knew what people wanted. I took out my phone, bought a domain name, liliesgardenevents.com, Lily's Garden, named after my daughter. Event planning. I started small. Baby showers, graduation parties, small weddings. I worked insane hours. Coffee shop in the morning, event planning in the afternoon, catering at night, business classes 3 nights a week. I slept 4 hours a night. Lily was in school, in after-school care, sometimes stayed with Jenna. I missed so much of her childhood. But every night, no matter how late I came home, I'd wake her up for 5 minutes. I'd hold her and tell her, "We're building something. We're going to be okay." By the time I was 30, I'd quit the coffee shop. By 32, I'd quit the catering job I was hiring caterers now. By 35, Lily's Garden Events was grossing $500,000 a year. By 40, we were doing corporate events, tech company launch parties, venture capital firm dinners. By 43, annual revenue was $3.2 million. I bought a house in Pacific Heights. Not huge, not showy. But it was mine, all mine, legally mine. I had the deed in a fireproof safe, plus a digital copy in 3 separate cloud services. Lily grew up in that house. She went to a good public high school, took AP classes, played soccer. She got into Stanford, full scholarship plus grants. My daughter, the one I'd raised in a garage, in a shelter, in subsidized housing, was going to Stanford. I cried for an hour when the acceptance letter came. She was in her junior year when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Sarah Chen?" A man's voice. Formal. "Yes. This is Wei Lin, from Northern California Private Investigations. I'm calling on behalf of Robert and Margaret Chen. They'd like to meet with you to discuss a family matter." My blood went cold. "How did you get this number?" "Public records, ma'am. Your business is quite prominent. The Chens saw an article about you in the San Francisco Chronicle." There had been an article. 2 weeks ago. Bay Area mom turns tragedy into triumph. How Sarah Chen built a multi-million-dollar events empire. They'd interviewed me about being a young widow, starting with nothing, building Lily's Garden Events. I'd told them everything except the part about the house. I'd said, "I lost everything when my husband died. Had to start over." The reporter thought I meant emotionally. I didn't correct her. "I have nothing to say to the Chens," I told the investigator. They asked me to relay that it's urgent, regarding family matters and a possible reconciliation. After 20 years? They're experiencing some financial difficulties. They're hoping you might be open to helping family. There it was. Not sorry, not asking for forgiveness, asking for money. I hung up, but they didn't stop. A week later, Margaret showed up at my office. My assistant tried to stop her, but Margaret pushed past. She looked older, frailer, but her eyes were still sharp. "Sarah." She said my name like we were old friends. "You look wonderful." I stood up from my desk. "You need to leave. Please. Just 5 minutes." She sat down in the chair across from my desk, uninvited. "I know we didn't part on good terms. You stole my house." "We had a disagreement about property," she corrected. "But that was a long time ago. We were grieving. We all made mistakes." "I didn't make mistakes. You forged documents and stole $800,000 from me." Her jaw tightened. "David was our son. We had a right. You had no right." Silence. Then her face softened, shifted tactics. "I came to apologize. Robert and I have been talking. We realize we were too harsh." We should have helped you more. We were wrong. Okay. Apology noted. You can leave now. We'd like to make amends. To be part of your life again. Part of Lily's life. Lily? Our granddaughter. We've missed so much. We'd like to meet her. To build a relationship. I almost laughed. You want to meet her? You've had 20 years. She's 20 years old. We thought. Margaret's voice got smaller. We were waiting for you to have a son. To carry on the Chen name. We heard you remarried. I never remarried. Oh. She looked confused. We assumed. With your success. We thought surely you'd had more children. A son. And there it was. The same old story. They'd dismissed Lily her entire life because she was a girl. They'd been waiting for a grandson. For a real heir. Never mind that Lily was David's daughter, their actual grandchild. She didn't count because she didn't have the right chromosomes. Get out of my office, I said. Sarah, please. We're family. We've fallen on some hard times. Robert's business failed. We're struggling. We thought maybe you could help. Alone, perhaps. Or you could hire Robert as a consultant. He has so much experience. He has experience stealing from widows, you mean? Her face hardened. We raised David. We gave him everything. We gave you that house. My grandmother gave me that house. You stole it. We're about to lose our condo, she said, voice cracking now. We owe $500,000. Creditors are circling. We have nowhere else to turn. You're doing so well. Surely you could spare something for your late husband's parents. For family. I opened my office door. Security, please escort Miss Chen out. She stood, collected her purse. At the door, she turned back. We're giving a small gathering next month. Just close family. We'd love for you and Lily to come. To reconcile. Robert will be there. Maybe we can all talk. Find a solution together. I'm not interested in reconciling. Lily's graduation is coming up, isn't it? Stanford. We saw the announcement. We're so proud. We'd love to celebrate with her. Be part of her life. She left her number on my assistant's desk. That night, I told Lily everything. All of it. She knew her father died when she was a baby. Knew we'd struggled. Knew we'd lived in a garage and a shelter. But I'd never told her about the house. About the Chens. About what they'd done. She listened to everything. Then she was quiet for a long time. Mom, she finally said, what are you going to do? Nothing. I don't want them in our lives. They're my grandparents. My only grandparents. Biologically, yes. But they abandoned you. They didn't want anything to do with you because you're a girl. I know. Lily looked at me. She had her father's eyes. But I think you should see them. What? Why? Because I want to meet them. I want to look them in the eye. I want them to see what I've become, what you've built, what they missed out on. She smiled, fierce. And then I want to watch you destroy them. My daughter, the Stanford student. So much like me. Actually, I said slowly, I have a better idea. 3 weeks later, I called Margaret back. That gathering you mentioned. What if we did something bigger? Lily's graduating in May. What if we threw a party? A real celebration. You could invite your friends. I'll invite mine. We'll make it a family reunion of sorts. Margaret sounded thrilled. That would be wonderful. Where? Stanford Faculty Club. I'll handle everything. Invitations, catering, everything. It's what I do, after all. I paused. There is one thing, though. I'd need you and Robert to sign a release form. Standard event liability waiver. My insurance requires it for all events over 100 guests. Of course. Whatever you need. I had my lawyer draw up the papers. Not a liability waiver. A sworn affidavit acknowledging the events of 20 years ago. Acknowledging they'd taken my house under false pretenses, sold it for $800,000, kept the proceeds, all laid out in legal language, with dates, details, specifics. At the bottom, we acknowledge these facts are true and accurate. The genius part? I buried it in 15 pages of actual event liability language. Guest injury protocols, food allergy disclaimers, parking regulations, Standard boilerplate that nobody ever reads. The acknowledgement section was on page 12, in the same font, same formatting. It looked like more liability waiver language. They signed it. Both of them. Notarized. I planned the party. 200 guests. All of Lily's friends from Stanford, her professors, my business associates, my employees, tech executives I'd worked with over the years. I also invited everyone from the old neighborhood, everyone who'd known the Chens 20 years ago. I invited Emma, David's sister, flew her in from Chicago. I invited the lawyers who'd turned me away when I couldn't afford them. I invited Professor Linda Martinez, who'd told me to build my life instead of fighting a court battle. And I set up live streaming, professional cameras, professional sound, posted the link on my business Facebook page, my Instagram. Join us in celebrating Lily Chen's graduation from Stanford. 5,000 people RSVP'd to watch online. The day of the party, Margaret and Robert arrived in an Uber. They used to drive a Mercedes. Not anymore, clearly. Margaret wore a dress from Macy's, not Nordstrom. Robert's suit was 10 years old, shiny at the elbows. They looked smaller somehow, diminished. They greeted me warmly, hugged me even. "Sarah, this is so wonderful. Thank you for inviting us." "Of course," I said. I'd placed them at the head table. Guest of honor seating. Everyone could see them. Lily came in, wearing her cap and gown. She looked beautiful. She walked right past her grandparents to me, hugged me first. "You ready?" she whispered. "Ready." I tapped the microphone. The room quieted. 200 people watching in person, 5,000 watching online. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my daughter Lily's graduation from Stanford. For those who don't know me, I'm Sarah Chen. 20 years ago, I was a 24-year-old widow with an 11-month-old daughter. No money, no family, and no prospects. I want to tell you how I got here. I saw Margaret's face start to change. Confusion, then concern. When my husband David died, his parents Margaret and Robert Chen, who are here tonight, convinced me to sign some papers. I was grieving. I wasn't thinking clearly. They told me these papers were temporary property management agreements. They told me they were helping. Robert started to stand up. Emma, David's sister, was sitting next to him. She put her hand on his arm, held him down. She shook her head at him. What they didn't tell me was that they were taking my house. The house my grandmother left me. The house that was in my name only. Had been in my name since before I ever met David. They changed the locks. They threw me and my baby out. They sold the house for $800,000. I never saw a penny. The room was dead silent. You could hear Margaret breathing. I pulled out poster boards, blown up copies of documents. Here's my grandmother's original deed. See the name? Sarah Williams. My maiden name. Here's the date. December 2003. 2 years before I met David. Here's the fake temporary agreement they tricked me into signing. And here, I pulled out the big one. Here's the affidavit they signed 3 weeks ago, acknowledging all of this is true. Gasps. People pulled out their phones, started recording. Why am I telling you this now? I looked at Margaret and Robert. Because they came back, after 20 years. Not to apologize, not to make things right, but to ask for money. They're broke. They want me to bail them out. They want me to give them a loan, hire Robert as a consultant. I smiled. And they told me they'd been waiting to meet their grandchild. They said they thought I'd have a son by now. A son to carry on the Chen name. I gestured to Lily. She stood up. This is their grandchild. This is Lily Chen. She's been alive for 20 years. But she didn't count to them because she's a girl. They were waiting for a grandson. They dismissed her entire existence. Lily took the microphone. Hi, Grandma. Hi, Grandpa. It's nice to finally meet you. Let me tell you about myself. I graduated from Stanford with a double major in political science and economics, 3.9 gigapascals. I'm starting at Yale Law School in the fall. Full scholarship. After I pass the bar, I'll be clerking for a federal judge. I speak 3 languages. I volunteer at a women's shelter, helping single mothers with legal aid. Last year, I won the Truman Scholarship for Public Service. I'm everything you said women couldn't be. She handed the microphone back to me. Here's what I could do, I said. I could sue them. My lawyer says I have an excellent case. Fraud, conversion of property, elder abuse statutes. With interest and penalties, they owe me over $1 million. I have the original deed. I have photos of the forged documents. I have their signed affidavit from 3 weeks ago. It's airtight. Margaret was crying. Robert was staring at the table. But I'm not going to sue. You know why? Because you're not worth my time. You stole $800,000 from me. I made it back. I made $3.2 million last year. You tried to destroy me. I built myself an empire. You dismissed my daughter. She's going to Yale Law. I paused. You already lost. 20 years ago, you lost. You just didn't know it yet. I pulled out one more document. However, I am doing one thing. I've been anonymously paying for your Medicare supplement insurance for the past 5 years. Basic coverage, not luxury. You didn't know it was me. I did it because David would have wanted his parents housed and fed. Not comfortable, not rich, but safe. I slid the document across the table. This is a trust agreement. When you die, any remaining funds go to women's shelters for single mothers. But until then, you'll have your basic medical care covered. You'll have enough for a small apartment and food. You'll live. You won't starve. I looked at both of them. That's more than you gave me. That's more than you deserve. But that's what I'm choosing to give. Not for you. For the man I married. For the father of my daughter. For David, who would be ashamed of what you did. I took Lily's hand. Now if you'll excuse us, we have a celebration to get to. Lily's graduating from Stanford. It's a big day. We walked away. The entire room erupted in applause. Margaret and Robert sat there, frozen. I'm so sorry. You have nothing to apologize for, I told her. The video went viral. 2 million views in 3 days. The comments were supportive, angry on my behalf, congratulatory. A few people asked why I didn't sue. Take everything. I responded to one. Because success is better than revenge. They thought they broke me. I proved they didn't. A week later, my lawyer called. Sarah, you know that affidavit they signed? The one acknowledging the property fraud? There's a statute of limitations on civil fraud claims in California, but we could make an argument for equitable tolling given that they concealed the original deed location. If you wanted to pursue this. No, I said. I meant what I said. They're not worth it. Even for $1 million? Even for 10 million. I don't need their money. I made my own. But I did do one thing. I sent a copy of the affidavit and all the documentation to the California State Bar. Robert had practiced law years ago, was still technically a member of the bar. Within 6 months, he was disbarred for fraud and ethical violations. Not my doing, just facts coming to light. Margaret called me once after that. You destroyed us, she said. No, I told her. I told the truth. You destroyed yourselves 20 years ago. I just made sure people knew about it. She hung up. Lily graduated. We took photos on the Stanford campus, her in her cap and gown, me in a dress I'd bought at Nordstrom without looking at the price tag. Professor Linda Martinez. We went to dinner after, a nice restaurant in Palo Alto. Mom, Lily said, raising her glass, I want to propose a toast to the strongest woman I know, who took nothing and built everything, who taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up. Thank you for always showing up. I cried, happy tears this time. That night, back at the house in Pacific Heights, I went to my safe, pulled out my grandmother's deed, the original one, the one I'd stolen back 20 years ago from Robert's filing cabinet, the one that proved the house was always mine. I'd kept it all these years, not to sue, not for revenge, but as a reminder. I showed it to Lily. This is why I never gave up. Because I had proof. I had evidence that I was right, even when everyone told me I was wrong. So when life gets hard and it will remember, hold on to your proof, hold on to your truth, and build your life so well that the people who tried to break you have to watch you succeed. She held the deed, this piece of paper that had changed everything. What are you going to do with it now? I thought about it. I think I'll frame it, hang it in my office. Not as a trophy, as a reminder that the truth always matters, even when it takes 20 years to tell it. We framed it together, hung it next to my business license, next to the photo of Lily at her high school graduation, next to the Stanford acceptance letter. My office phone rang the next morning. "Unknown number," I answered. "Is this Sarah Chen? This is Anderson Cooper's team from CNN. We saw the video of your daughter's graduation party. We'd like to interview you for a segment on economic empowerment after domestic financial abuse. Would you be interested?" I smiled. Actually, yes, I would. Because that's the thing about truth. You can suppress it for 20 years, but eventually, it comes out. And when it does, it changes everything. The Chens sent one more letter after that. Through their lawyer. Not the PI this time. It said, "Our clients request that you cease all defamatory statements and remove all videos and posts referencing them. They are considering legal action for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress." My lawyer responded, "Truth is an absolute defense to defamation. Your client signed a notarized affidavit acknowledging all facts stated by Ms. Chen are accurate. Any lawsuit will be immediately dismissed and may result in sanctions against your clients for frivolous litigation. Additionally, Ms. Chen has video evidence of your client's own admissions during their attempts to solicit money from her. We recommend you advise your clients to cease all contact." I never heard from them again. Lily started at Yale in the fall. I helped her move into her apartment in New Haven. As I was leaving, she hugged me. "Mom, I've been thinking about something. Why didn't you tell me about all of this when I was younger?" "Because I didn't want you to grow up angry. I wanted you to grow up strong. But weren't you angry? Every single day. For years. But at some point, I realized anger was just giving them more of my time. So I channeled it into building. Every time I wanted to scream, I made a business call instead. Every time I wanted to cry, I studied for my next exam. I turned rage into revenue." She laughed. "I want to do that. Turn rage into revenue. You will. You already are. You're going to be an incredible lawyer. You're going to help people who were where I was, powerless, dismissed, stolen from, and you're going to give them back their power." I drove home to San Francisco, to my house in Pacific Heights, to my business that I built from nothing. I thought about the garage apartment, the shelter, the 90-hour work weeks, the years of struggle. I thought about the Chens, believing they'd broken me, believing I'd never recover. They were wrong, and that's the real ending. Not the party, not the exposure, not the viral video. The real ending is that I'm here, I'm successful, I'm happy, my daughter is thriving, and the people who tried to destroy me are footnotes in my success story. They didn't break me. They made me stronger, and that's the best revenge of all.